guys, and welcome back to my channel, Sim Talk. Guys, as you can see, I've got another guest in the studio.
Yes.
Do you want to introduce yourself, guest?
Yes. So, hi everyone. My name is Nana. I am the co-host of the Social Worker and the Mentor podcast.
Now, guys, well, you probably won't know on YouTube, but my close friends who follow me on WhatsApp, like, look how this has happened. Because I think it was last year, I actually posted a few clips of your platform on my WhatsApp. And I've always admired you. I've been like, look at these two guys, young guys, talking about social work. And I thought, you know what? I wouldn't mind interviewing you one day.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I reached out, but you're way too busy, probably, in all your messages.
The messages I get,
I reached out just saying, would you ever consider like interviewing a Sen mum? But I think by that point you had done already.
Yeah.
But Nana just scrolled through and was
Do you know how many messages I had? I know, so many. Yeah.
I know. And then met at an event in January.
Yeah, we did.
He was part of the panel, weren't you?
Oh, was it Black Safeguarding Conference?
There's so many events that you go to.
Do you know what, guys? There's so many now. I'm trying to think, what event was it in January?
Is it like the parenting? I'm gonna look back, guys.
Yeah. Because I think about so many events.
Yes, I could see. And then we got talking.
Yes, we did. And
then, do you know what? I followed your other platforms and I just invited you here.
Yeah, and guys, I'm here. Please make sure you follow. Please follow this platform. Social workers, everybody, you name it, follow this platform, please.
Thank you so much. So please, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and we'll get right into it.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Yes.
Listen, I'm ready. I'm ready for this. I'm ready.
Let's go.
I'm fully ready.
Introduce yourselves to us again.
Yeah, so hi everyone. So my name is Nana. I'm a qualified social worker. I've been qualified since 2014. I'm currently a team manager for a specialty exploitation team. It's my fourth team actually that I'm managing. Yeah, my fourth team. So I've managed exploitation now. I've previously managed leaving care. I've managed looked after children. I've managed child protection, and I've managed referral and assessment. But I am the co-host of the Social Worker and the Mentor podcast. So you probably would have seen me on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube that I do with my co-host and my brother. He's my brother, Robert Dyer. I'm also one of the social work union, so social workers union national executives. So that kind of puts me in kind of like the political arena, whereby I'm really kind of advocating for better working conditions for social workers. So I'm doing a lot of work with them and Baswa. And I've been to Parliament, went to Parliament in October 2023 to speak about social workers. And then last year, I attended with the Social Workers Union in Parliament again to be part of the first cross-party working group. So we're actually meeting with MPs, speaking about working conditions for social workers. And on top of that, I mentor. So I mentor a lot of newly qualified social workers and students. I've actually got about 33 mentees at the moment. Yeah.
30.
Yeah, I've got 33 mentees. Yeah, so I've got a group of mentees that I mentor. So we have like our groups once a month, but then they also can, if they want sessions with me, that I also mentor them as well. And then I'm also an associate lecturer, so different universities. So I've been lecturing. I've lectured at London Met. I've lectured at Brunel. I've lectured at University of Hertfordshire, Anglia Ruskin. I'm going to be going to the South Bank in April. So, I do a lot. I do so much.
Absolutely. You do so much. I don't even know where to start with this because I didn't realize you did so much.
Yeah. Do you know what?
This is amazing.
Do you know what, someone, to be honest with you? I mean, like in the very, very beginning, I mean, to be honest with you, I have to credit the podcast, because in the beginning, I remember, so it was actually, the podcast was Rob's idea. And Rob was the one who said to me that, actually, why don't we do a podcast about social work and education? I was like, do you know what job role I do is very, very, very controversial? But he said to me, actually, you know what, in saying that, it's important and you be a good face to talk about it. And so I'm really, really proud, Simone, of the podcast that me and Rob have done, because the job role of a social worker is very, very difficult. There's a lot of stigma about our job role. You get bonuses for removing children. You just go and take children away for no reason. And so part
Where have
of,
they got that from?
but the thing is, man, what I'll say to you is this, right? For a very, very, very long time, the social work profession has been very, very silenced.
Mm.
We've never had the opportunity to speak openly about our job role and what we do in terms of caseloads, pay, and the lack of resources. And then you've got the mainstream media as well. So we've never had the opportunity to push back. Whereas the podcast that I've done with Rob, and it's obviously as well as that, there's other social workers who are on TikTok as well, got their own platforms. We're starting to kind of push back and say, actually, you know what? We don't just go and remove children. There is a statutory process that we have to follow. We talk about things to do with caseloads and to do with burnout and to do with stigma, because ultimately, for social workers, it's about giving us a voice to actually speak. And so for me, it's been really, really good for me doing this podcast with Rob to speak on behalf of the social profession. I mean, I've even been on I had an interview with the BBC, was it like 2 3 years ago? And I remember when one of the things we spoke about was how social work is depicted in the media in soap like Coronation Street and EastEnders. And one of the things I went and said is that the problem is that you've depicted social work in a certain light without consulting with us to go and say, right, this is the role of a social worker. So sometimes I've watched EastEnders and Coronation Street, and it's like a social worker just walks in and takes a child, and it's like, I know it's a soap, but you should be speaking to us in terms of what the process is. So the podcast, Simone, has really, really been good because I've been quite open and vocal about the things that social workers deal with. And what's good about it is the fact that, myself and Rob are two black men as well. And
Yeah.
although the podcast is very, very niche, we didn't want to be typical. There's other podcasts out there that, might talk about relationships and all those sorts of things. Myself and Rob went and said, no, we went and said we wanted to actually take a different route and be black men, whereby how we're depicted and our message is different and we're authentic. So that's why people relate to myself
Yeah.
and Rob. So we've had a lot of people come on. I've had a lot of, I've had the chief social, I'm doing a lot with the chief social worker, Isabel Trowler. I've been to the Department for Education. So yeah, I do a lot. And ultimately for me, it's important because social work also, black men, we are a minority. Black men don't tend to go into social work. We tend to go into maybe like gangs or youth offending.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of black men in social work. So for me, part of it is about representation.
Yeah.
So I want other black men to see me and to say, you know what, actually, we can see Nana, someone who's out there, who's vocal, who's educated, he's really represented. And I'm trying to also change the stereotypes of, being a black man, we can also be successful, not just in sports or in music, but
Yeah.
also within the area of
That's right.
social work where we've got a seat at the table.
That's right. And I think that's what your unique selling point is.
Yeah.
Black men. As you said, it's not just about the music, the athletics, or that you're just social workers, but yourself, you're a team manager. So
This
you've
is
worked
it.
so hard to get to that level.
Yeah.
And I can see you getting a lot further
But
as
that's my
well.
aspirations. So my aspirations, Simone, is that I want to be a DCS. I've said to everybody that my aspiration is to be a director of children's services because I that glass ceiling is very much there. Is although I'm a team manager, is not to say that I haven't had my own difficulties in terms of progressing up. But I've been very, very fortunate whereby I've had a lot of black women who supported me along the way. A lot of black women who have been my mentors have really supported me in my journeys of progressing up. So, for me, those are my aspirations. That I just think it's important for me to progress up there. Yes, I want to be there because I want to progress, but also is what it will represent and what it will stand for. Because there are a lot of decisions, when we look at social work, when we look at the overrepresentation of black children within the care system as well, the inequalities, the biases, those decisions, they play out in a lot of our care planning. And so often, sometimes you have to be the one to go and say, well, actually, there are racial undertones that are at work, which is playing a part in what's happening. And sometimes a lot of people don't want to have that conversation. But with me, I have that conversation in those rooms and say, these are the things that you need to consider.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. Honestly, there's so much to unpick. So, when you mentioned, so it was Rob that mentioned about why don't we start a podcast. Was that quite easy to start up, or did you have some challenges with your employer at the time?
So do you know what? It's so interesting you say that, because when me and Rob did the podcast, the very first local authority that I worked for, where Rob is still there at the moment, we did get pushback, because what the local authority was concerned about is that we were going to talk about their local authority. We went and said, it's not about you. And this is outside of our work time. We are talking about social work in general. So at the time, the senior leaders at the time, when they said that you guys can't do it, and I remember talking to Rob, and Rob was very, very pissed off and said, nah, no one's going to tell us what to do. We continued to do it anyway. And funny enough, when I left the local authority, because the podcast started to get traction, that's when they went and said, oh, actually, by the way, you see what you're doing, can we integrate it into yeah. And honestly, and me and Rob said, we said no. You weren't backing it from the beginning. So
I can ask Nana, is it something where you and Rob went to sort of give them a brief?
No,
did they find out about?
No, so what it is, Simone, is that the podcast straight away, the first episode we did got over 2,000 views. So it hit the social work world very quickly.
Wow.
And it was good. So at that time, I was still starting out I was going, I was speaking at different universities. So it blew. And so obviously, social work is a very, very small place. People are going to watch it. Who are these people? Oh, who's that social worker? Because obviously, I still work for the local authority. And they said, oh, no, what you're doing. And I said to them, well, actually, look, one, it's not during work hours. You ain't paying me. Me and Rob, we're paying for our studio time. We're paying for editing. We can do this. We haven't mentioned anything to do with the local authority that we work for. And, we've got our data protection handle disclaimer. We're doing this because it's a podcast, right? And the whole way through, Simone, me and Rob have done our episodes. We've been very, very clear about our data protection and all this stuff. We never mentioned where we were. Any cases, we don't mention families' names. Me and Rob, we are, and this is the thing as well. I think I'm going to openly say this, is that in the beginning of when we started doing the podcast, a lot of people actually questioned me and Rob's knowledge, right? And so me and Rob had to clap back, because one of the things that we were kind of seeing, and it was like I said, it was maybe from a few of the audience, but it was the majority supported us, but people questioning our knowledge. And so we had to clap back and said, you know what, the only reason why you're saying that is because you're seeing two black men. And what you want to do is that it's hard for you to digest that two black men who are educated, and me and Rob, we've got a combination of nearly 40 years experience between us in education and social work. Do you know what I mean? Rob is a veteran in what he does. So we were kind of saying we clapped back and said to people, listen, for those of you who have an issue, it's because me and Rob are two black men and we're authentic. You are questioning our professionalism. If we were white co-hosts, would you be having an issue with it? And it silenced a lot of people. And a lot of people actually in the comments actually said, Nana and Rob, we're so happy that you've gone and said this. Because it's true. Because I think people want to see black men differently. And me and Rob, nobody's pigeonholing what we're doing. And even with the podcast, and even what I do as a social worker, and where you see me, no one's pigeonholing me. Because all these arenas, Simone, that I go into, even if I go into Parliament or I go, certain arenas, there's hardly any black faces that are there. And so I know that actually I've got the knowledge and expertise to be in those rooms. You know what I mean? And I might be the only black person that's there, and that's a problem. But it also represents an opportunity for me to actually go and say that the fact that I'm the only black male here is an issue, but I actually have a seat to speak on the experiences of those from black and global majority who may not have a voice in regards to the inequalities within the system, particularly within social work. So I say for myself and Rob, it's been very, very important for us to do this podcast. And I think it's been brilliant because people can see what we're trying to do. We haven't lost ourselves or identity, but people like the fact that we're relatable.
That is so true. When did you start it?
So what are we in 2026 now? So I think 2021. So we're coming to 4.5, 5 years. Yeah, that's how long me and Rob have been going for.
And you've been consistent. You've not
Yeah, we've
dropped
been
off or
consistent. We haven't.
anything.
No, and the thing is, like, me and Rob, we have our day jobs, but we schedule it. Sometimes we've had to kind of, like, what me and Rob are very, very clear on. During the 6 month, 6 week holidays, we're not filming. That's our time to have our time just to film and what have you. But where me and Rob are able to be consistent, we're consistent. We film. It's not to say, Simone, that we've had to move studios. Now we've got a very, very nice. And I need to shout out my studio, yeah, Myriad Studio, Jermaine and Elm. I need to big them up because they've actually been very, very brilliant, and they've really, really supported myself and Rob. But yeah, we've been consistent, and and even with our guests as well, we've had brilliant, brilliant guests come on who've added to the knowledge and what people want
Yeah.
us to talk about.
Oh, well done. So, when you've mentioned about is it like this forum, workers forum, how often would you like meet in Parliament or have these meetings?
Yeah, so with Parliament, Simone, it's difficult in the sense that because the Social Workers Union is when we're able to get the time that's available. So
Okay.
it's not often as consistent, but we're trying to form a better close relationship with MPs in
Right.
terms of what is happening in in the world of social work. So when I went in October, it was good for me and other members of the Social Workers Union to speak about what is happening in the world of social work. When I went in Parliament in 2023, in October, I spoke openly about the working conditions for social workers and the fact that social workers have high caseloads, are working well beyond the 36-hour working week. Sometimes are burning out, the impact on mental health. It was really, really good for me. That video went viral as well. So people can really, really see that actually I'm really, really trying to
Mm.
raise the profile of social work, in terms of what we do, but also, Simone, change the stigma. People still have that view that social workers get bonuses for removing children. I have been a social worker for 12 years. I've never received a bonus for removing a child. The whole profession would be into such disrepute if that was the case. But the stigma of when children are removed and go into care is very much rife in the sense
Mm.
that many people seem to think that, when children are removed, it's for no reason. And part of what I've had to do as a social worker is explain, to people, Simone, that there's a statutory process. As a social worker, I can't just walk in and just remove a child. You know, I have to have a legal planning meeting. It has to go to your senior managers. It has to go to a panel. There's so many layers to it. So I'm really trying to educate people on the job of a social worker that you can't just go straight in and remove a child. And to be honest with you, court is the last resort. If anything, we want to try and keep the families together. So, like I said, that's what I've been trying to do in terms of speaking to people about our processes and what social workers do, and it's been good because it's about educating people in terms of what the job of a social worker is.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Mm.
And not just maybe like well, firstly, you're never too old in the career to stop learning.
Yeah.
And then you've got also the newly qualified social workers or the student social workers,
Mm.
and even families who
Yeah.
are understanding the process, as you say, because their education platform would be soap operas like EastEnders, where you've
Yeah.
got that typical, stereotypical social worker in her grey cardigan that goes in and take the child out.
This is it, Simone, and what you just said here, it's about what does a social worker look like, because everybody, I think, for a long time has depicted social workers, and I've heard it, being like an old white lady. And it's when I've turned up at families' doorstep, they're quite surprised. You've got a young black man who's a social worker. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, what does a social worker look like? And it's been good because when I've gone to work and meet with a lot of young people, they've been able to relate to me. So changing the image of what does it mean to be a social worker, that stereotypical view, or you come in with your folder and you're writing this, so it's been good to kind of, for people to be able to see that actually, you know what, black men, a young black man like myself, like Nana, yeah, he can be a social worker too. And it's been good. It's been really, really good.
Okay, Thank you for that, Nana. So, as you're aware, my YouTube platform is about raising awareness about all things relating to special educational needs and disabilities.
Mm.
So, I'm sure I saw a video of yours where you were sitting in the car. I'm not sure if it was TikTok or
Yeah, it was
Instagram,
TikTok. Yeah,
and you were sharing your experience about working with a young person with special educational needs.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah,
I don't know whether it's something where you've had a lot of experience in, or
yeah,
but if you have anything, please share.
yeah. So TikTok video that I did. Yeah, so it was a young person who was a looked after child, and one of the things I was talking about was the importance of social workers where we have capacity attending SEND provisions for our young people. And the reason why I say that is because ultimately, particularly in the areas of education where um, we know there's a lot kind of going on in terms of education healthcare plans, but particularly when our young people are going to be going to new settings, it's very important for us to go to those settings and actually go and see what is on offer for our young people. In terms of working with a lot of young people, SEN, I have worked with a lot of young people, and one of the things I know, particularly for their cases, which is often a regular occurrence when I'm going through their history, is often sometimes whether the support comes early. I know a lot of SEM parents have spoken a lot regarding the fact that they feel as though the government as a whole, local authorities are not being as hot in terms of providing support, and often how the thresholds appear to be very, very high, very, very, very high in terms of accessing a lot of support. So, as a social worker, a lot of the cases that I've had have varied. They've been maybe young people who are child in need or child protection, or I've done a child and family assessment. What I will say, actually, young people that I've worked with, particularly under the contextual safeguarding framework, um, some have had a lot of actually SEND. And I also did a video recently regarding a young person, but he's an adult now. He was a rapper from South London, and unfortunately now he's currently in prison at the moment. But he'd been involved in a dispute with another young person, but he's an adult now. One of the things I was talking about was looking back through the case history while I was reading is that actually there was quite a lot of concerns with his behavior, and he was neurodivergent, and it's whether the support was provided to him at an earlier stage. We don't know because um, I only got a limited amount of information on his case. So I think SEN is something that I know is heavily impacted upon a lot of families. I know there's a lot of young people and children who are waiting for even school places. It is very, very difficult at the moment. I know local authorities are under a lot of pressure to try and deliver. So I understand a lot of parents' frustration with the system and the impact it will have upon their children, really. But what I will say is that there are a lot of people doing a lot of good work, and I want to mention them. There's Marsha from Black Said Mamas. She's doing a
Yeah,
lot of fantastic work. She's
brilliant.
been on the profile. There's Agnish Ajapong as well, and there's Nana
Yeah,
from Send Bites. I do a lot of work
I've actually
with
interviewed him, so
yeah.
yeah.
So Nana, yeah. So those are people who were doing a lot of
Yeah,
who are a lot of brilliant work, and I'd urge a lot of parents to tap into their profile.
yeah.
Nana and Marsha and Agnes, they've all been to Parliament, so
Mm.
they are going where they need to be. So yeah, tap into them because they're doing a lot of work to
Yeah,
support a lot of families.
there's so much going on. There's a lot of worry, amongst the Sen community right now,
Mm,
because tomorrow the white paper comes out about Sen
yes.
reforms. There have been leaks, so there's been
Yeah.
hearsay things, what to expect. And speaking on behalf of a Sen mum,
Mm-hmm.
people warned me at the beginning, and also my background. Ironically, I used to support Sen children in schools, and I became a
Mm,
family support worker, then a lead parent support advisor. So I've been on the journey, but on the other side as a professional.
Yeah.
Then, so I had an idea, but wow, once I realized, and I worked also for the Children with Disabilities team for about 6 months, not
Yeah.
knowing that my own child had a disability because he was only a few months old.
Yeah.
So I've realized how much I've had to fight. And I think the
Mm.
worrying thing is that what will this white paper look like?
Yeah.
And in a way, will it undo everything that we fought for? You know?
Yeah, and you know what? One of the things for me, what I often go and say, is about, and I say this a lot of the times in terms of, you know, whenever the government is having any kind of consultation with, you know, anybody regarding any reforms or changes, is that it's very important that you have your stakeholders in the room. So it's very, very important, particularly regarding, you know, SEN, that there should be SEN professionals and parents. The stakeholders should be in those rooms
Yeah.
when you're having those a lot of those consultations. It's the same thing as a social worker. You know, um, in my last local authority where I worked, we had corporate parenting board. In terms of they looked after children and leaving care service.
Mhm.
So on the corporate parenting board, we had care leavers accessing the service in terms of what the local office should look like for care leavers. So it's the same thing about SEN.
Yeah.
So it's important that you have your stakeholders around to be able to both give you criticism and feedback in terms of how
Yeah.
things can change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
I know there's a lot going on right now, and I know that it's going to be interesting to see what that white paper actually, what that white paper actually
Yeah.
says.
Because if you're not listening to people with lived experiences, you make your own assumptions about things.
And
Because,
assessments, yeah.
you know, like was it last year or the year before? I think there was a council meeting. I don't know what borough it was. And there was a comment about, from one of the councillors, yes, all these SEN parents, they meet up or they speak to each other online and they're giving each other tips about how to fill in applications for DLA and you're thinking, you're making it seem like a negative thing.
Yeah.
Some of the SEN parents have got additional needs themselves,
Yeah.
whether it's like dyslexia, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
autism, they might have dyslexia. What is the problem with that? Supporting, as long as it meets the child's needs.
Yeah. It's a community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot on transport. Like my son, you know, he was at a local school. He was in a mainstream for the longest time. He was more in mainstream than he's not been.
Yeah.
But as he got older, you know, we all, even including the SEN caseworker or EHC caseworker, was just like, what's the next steps, mum, for when he starts secondary school?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
and so the options, primary, yeah, naturally quite nurturing. I know like
Yeah.
some audience members might not have the same experience, but we have had really good experiences. But at the same time, I had to think about, okay, what are the options around here? So actually transport does pick him up and his school is about 40 minutes away because I couldn't get
Yeah.
into the more local special needs school. And that comes up on the government's agenda of, oh, too much overspending. He's not in a taxi by himself. He's on a minibus, the local
With
authorities,
other
with
children,
other
young
young
people.
people.
Yeah.
So I know there's a big drive for mainstream school, but, you know, unless these teachers, which they're working incredibly hard,
Yeah.
but, you know, if you've got 30 children in your class and now you've got half of them that might have SEN because the government want to save money, how are you able to do your job?
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I also agree with you, Simone, in terms of even as the children get older as well, because even those EHCP education healthcare plans as well, how important that document is for young people, because you know they should have it up until the age of 25.
That's right.
How important that is for them when they go to college or university, or
That's
even when
right.
they're going to be going to work. So it's very, very important. So I'll be interested to see
Yeah.
how that white paper um, impacts, but also as well where it's gonna impact as well the local authorities as well. Will it change
Yeah.
threshold? Not change threshold. I'm not too sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So we'll have to wait and see. But no, thank you so much.
No, welcome,
Thank
welcome,
you
of
so much.
course. Yeah, so I know someone I spoke earlier a lot about. I want to talk about the students. So yeah, the mentoring of these students and going to universities. It was because one of the things that I realized, and a lot of people are saying, is that the social work kind of like degree and curriculum is out of date, in the sense that what is it teaching you for 2025 or 2026? Sorry. I remember when I got asked to go in to do to speak to students, they really, really found it to be useful. And then after that, I got asked if I could be like an associate lecturer. So I'd go in, lecture students for like half a day or so, and I bring real life social work examples for them to be able to go
Yeah.
and think about. And so one of the things for me that's important was about how we're practicing and practice models. And so one of the things that I realized is that a lot of kind of like the practice models and theories that we learn, although it's relative and important, is it current to how social workers are practicing? And so I remember I in 2023 I wrote about a model that I didn't have a name for it in the beginning, but then I started to reflect on my own practice in my first local authority. So I called it street social work practice model, and then I wrote I wrote it down on a Word document and I made it into PDF. And then I remember when I started talking about it, and then people were like, "Actually, Nana, you know what? Street social practice model, like, no, what you're saying makes sense." Because one of the things, Simone, I realized, right, when you work for a local authority, is that the moment that you go and leave the office, right, you step out into the community. Are you aware of your surroundings? Are you aware of the vernacular? Are you aware of how you need to be able to relate to a lot of the families that we're working with? Because I know this corporate way of working with social work, it creates a lot of barriers. We speak a lot in terms of like professional jargon, your CP, your ICPC, your PLO, but street social work is more about it being grounded in community social work. Doing statutory visits in the community, using street language, diversifying how we work. So yeah, I wrote the street social work practice model in 2023. I've started to use that model at lectures. A local authority actually asked me to bring it in for one of their practice development days. Yeah, and my ebook is coming out as well.
Well
I've written an
done.
ebook. Yeah.
What's the ebook called?
So the ebook is literally going to be called. It's called the Street Social Work Practice Model. It's going to be releasing next month. So I'll post it on my
Please,
Instagram and Instagram, because I really want practice to shift. There's a big disconnect right now between the families that we work with and how they view social workers. So I would push the boundaries a lot into my practice. My managers gave me a lot of scope to push the boundaries and practice how I practice. So when I used to write home visits, I'd use slang in there, because I wanted them to really understand as a social worker how I was communicating with a lot of our families. Some of our families, they don't want professional jargon. Some of them relate to you by just talking slang.
Yeah.
So and so going to universities and lecturing the students, part of that is I want students to really, really, really think about real life scenarios, even the legal process, how they're going to apply it. And the students really, 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 really enjoy it. And also preparation for practice as well. I say to students all the time, social work is not a 9 to 5 job. It is really, really not. I talk to them about burnout. I talk to them about caseloads. I talk to them about stigma. Even the podcast, Simone. I mean, students use the podcast as part of their CPD.
True.
Because they do, because it's real. Do you know what I mean? It's real. And I never had, I'll be honest with you, I never had when I was going through my social work training, I didn't have this. I didn't have podcasts to look at. And so the podcast, students use it and they're like, damn, what Nana's saying, actually, I fully agree. So that's the reason why, I lecture, because I want to make practice real for students,
100%.
even when they're studying. Because you need to know, I need to be saying to students, when you get out there, you're going to have a caseload. You're going to have a combination of CP sin. It's going to be complex. When you go on your home visit, how do you approach your first home visit? Have you researched your local authority, your landmarks? It's about making it real for them.
Honestly, because there is such a gap in uni legislation.
There is.
And then you're expected to, okay, you do your placements, I get that. But until you're actually in it,
this is what I'm trying to say.
You don't know.
You don't know.
And you said something so key, burnout. It's not spoken about.
It's not spoken about, and I speak about burnout all the time. Because I've been through it. There was a point, Simone, where I had a caseload of 40 children. I remember that when I was a senior social worker. Yeah, I had a caseload of 40,
Oh, wow.
32 on CP, 8 in court. Do you know what I mean? 8 does in proceedings. I was tired. So I talk about that because I want students and social workers to be aware that it's important. You take your time off. Your tray as a social worker, I'll tell you right now, is never going to be empty. Your tray is going to be full. Do you know what I mean? But it's about being able to manage expectations, and making sure you take your time, you rest, you go to bed early. One thing as social workers we do, sometimes we don't take our lunch. Take your lunch. Take your lunch. Or what you do, some of us, what we do is we're on the computer and we're having lunch, we're answering emails. No, get away from the screen. Take your lunch. 100%. It's so important. Yeah.
Be kind to yourself.
What I say to you is this. I've known social workers, right, whereby, a social worker last year that I know, right, passed away. Right, yeah. And the day before that social worker passed away, that social worker was in the office, and didn't wake up the following day. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that even when our social workers are even sick and we've got health issues, we're still coming in and we're working, because I think one of the things, Simone, it's important that I say this to people, is that as social workers, we get a lot of stick in our job role, right? And even when we're going through our own things, sometimes we're like, you know what? I still got to come into work, because if I'm sick or something happens and I'm not there, something happens to the child or young person, I'm going to feel guilty. I remember when my grandparents died. Remember when they passed away 2 years ago, right? And I remember when they passed away, I remember I took only 1 day off when my grandma passed away, and I went to work the following day, because I went and said, you know what, I got to think. I was managing CP then. I was like, because I got to think about the children and young people. Even though I was grieving, remember when my grandpa passed away as well, and I think I worked that day. Do you know what I mean? And so these are the things that sometimes people don't see on the inside, behind the curtain, that when we're sick or we're going through our own things, we put the job ahead of ourselves, 100%. Right? As social workers, we do. And I know as social workers, sometimes, we have our own families. Sometimes we put our own families second and put the job first, because we often feel guilty. Well, if I don't do this referral, or I don't do this or do that, it's that sense of guilt, because we've got that savior complex, which is a good thing, but it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because we always think that, you know what, no, I need to get this done. I've got to get this for this young people. Even someone, I even go and say this: social workers using their own money to support families. That's not spoken about. Do you know how many times as a social worker but I remember one time, it was a winter time, yeah. And I went to go and do a visit to go see a family in the dark. The families, all the lights had gone. The mum hadn't got money on her gas key. I gave the mum £50 and said, here's the money, to go and put money on your gas key, and to go and get shopping for your children.
And did you not claim it back?
I didn't claim it back. I put it on case note, because the job role, Simone, for us, it's about giving, right? Certain things here you claim it, but I'm not going to go and do a home visit and a mum, this is a child protection case, by the way, and the mum's, by the way, got no electricity. Her money hasn't come in. So I put a case to my manager and said, listen, I've given the parent £50 because of A, B, C, X, Y, Z. Wow. Do you know what I mean? So even all those things about social workers using our own money, when
doesn't get spoken about.
When budgets are constrained. I know social workers who, they want to get their young people. One of my young people, when I left the local authority that I've left, right? Christmas, and the local authority didn't pay for it. I said, I'll put him trainers out of my own pocket. Yeah, I brought him some trainers. I think the trainers like £80. I said, cool. I didn't claim the money back. It's for our young people. So these are the things that we do that it's not spoken about. So only the negative, when a child or young person dies, only the negative of what's happened is spoken about social workers. But all these things about, us going to help families using our own money, it's not spoken about. It's not. And it happens on a daily basis. It's never spoken about.
Unfortunately, Nana, just like every other profession, there are some bad eggs or bad apples. There are some social workers, whatever the reason is.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not a reflection of
No, it's not.
You know what I mean? Social care, most of us come in because we care and we want to make a difference.
And you're right. And the thing is, right, and I think because we get that a lot on social media, a lot, or even on TikTok, regarding the system and bad social workers. And I'm going to say openly, at no point do we defend bad practice. Bad practice exists in social work. I'm saying it clearly. Bad practice exists in social work, right? There was a social worker last year, Simone, that I called out, and you probably would have seen it. A social worker known to a local authority who was helping a drug dealer, right, traffic children, right? Yeah, I called that out. We don't want that in our profession. Do you know what I mean? But then
it's a lot of publicity.
It does, yeah. But it's when it's a blanket view about all social workers. There are brilliant social workers who practice very, very well. And there are social workers about there's bad practice. They shouldn't be in a profession. And I will always call out bad practice. There are social workers who have biases. They bring it into the workplace. Same with professionals. So I'm all about calling out bad practice. You get good social workers and bad social workers. But the ones who do good, they're either someone they're leaving, they're burnt out, they're tired, or they're pivoting and going elsewhere. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, so I'm just why it's good I'm on your platform, because I'm trying to get the realities and balances of what this job role is, right? It's a very, very hard job role being a social worker. It's rewarding in the sense that when you are making a difference and you see a difference, it's brilliant. But it's a taxing job. It's not a 9 to 5. You will not finish at 5 o'clock. Sometimes you have a high caseload and you will burn out. And I'm giving people the reality. Do we make mistakes? Of course we do as social workers. But do we actually do good work with families? We do. Do we want to support families? Of course we do. When serious case review happens, and I'm going to say this openly, we as social workers always get blamed when serious case review happens all the time, because people always go and talk about what is it we didn't do. But I'm going to say this openly, Simone. We're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You know the reason why? Because if children are removed, we've removed them and taken away from their families. But if they're killed whilst in the home, we didn't go and intervene, right? And the bit that people need to understand is this, and I had to accept this as well as a social worker, that if a parent wants to cause harm to their child, whether I'm in the home or not, they will do it, right? Social worker involved or not, they will do it, right? If I follow my processes and escalate and we go to court and remove that child, people will go and say, you've taken that child away. But if the same child is harmed and I don't go and do anything, you are also the problem. And this is what I want people to understand, that you, as a social worker, you can be stuck between a rock and a hard place. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah. Nana, thank you so much.
No, of course.
Honestly, he's so busy. You heard, like, was it a million things that he does, and you're making a change out there. You're making a positive impact. And I just want to say thank you. And thank you for the time to come to my platform.
Of course.
You know, to share your connection. And also, it's important, as you said, social work has got a stigma attached to it.
Yeah, we do.
And I hope with time that can change.
Yeah.
But also, I loved hearing about your connection to SEND and everything else to do with the children and families that I worked with. So,
Simone, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can I just say one thing, people, please? Can you make sure you follow the platform, please? Follow, you make sure you like, subscribe, and you share, yeah? Follow Simone's platform, honestly, yeah, please. She's doing a brilliant, brilliant work. We need more guests as well, more guests, so please, make sure you like, subscribe, and share, honestly.
Thank you so much. So, guys, yes, as Nana just said, please like, please subscribe, because I'm seeing the analytics. There's a lot of new viewers. I think it's like 90%, and you haven't subscribed yet. So if this is your second video,
press that button,
subscribe, okay? But as I say at the end of every video, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, but we're in this together. Take care. Bye. Nana, thank you so much.
Welcome. I'm glad I came in. I'm glad.